So in Washington and Charlottesville over the weekend, Antifa demonstrators turned out in force. They said they were there to fight fascism, but because they live in an entirely irony-free world, they themselves acted like fascists. They went after police officers and members of the press. Well, despite that, plenty of media personalities remained eager to defend them since they don't oppose political violence, only political violence by people they disagree with.
You attack cops, you slap the media, you are in the wrong, period. But I argue to you tonight, all punches are not equal morally. They are also wrong to hit, but fighting hate is right. People who show up to fight against bigots are not to be judged the same as the bigots, even if they do resort to the same kinds of petty violence.
Thuggishness is thuggishness wherever it comes from politically, and we should be the first to call it out.
I disagree. Sometimes you can't fight people by, praising them or being nice to them. You have to fight fire with fire sometimes.
So political violence is acceptable as long as you agree with me. It's hard to believe we're hearing this out loud and on television, but we are. Tammy Bruce has been watching it carefully. She's a radio talk show host, president of the Independent Women's Voice, and she joins us tonight. Tammy, what you just heard is an out-in-the-open, bald justification for political violence.
It is. And, of course, we're not unfamiliar with this. We've seen this historically. Americans have looked back traditionally on history and wondering, how did that happen in Germany? How do these things happen in left-wing cultures where people do inexplicable things? And here it is unfolding in front of us, this remarkably obscene suggestion that certain violence is okay against your fellow Americans. We have a system here that is unique in that people who we disagree with, we can argue against them. We have these ideas in the open, and we can even marginalize them and make it public that we don't like them. We have legislation, and we have a government that protects us with the rule of law. That's what makes America unique and different. What they're suggesting is all of that should go out the window, and that's the problem here. But here's why they're doing it. They've also invested in a narrative that says that President Trump is the creation of a new racism, that America is a racist country, and the only way to prove that, of course, is with events like this. And yet the problem for them is you had, about 25 white racists in Washington, D.C. Most Americans, Tucker, get more people at their backyard barbecue every weekend. And even after...
Well, that's exactly...
Right. That's the real news here. And yet, because
but isn't that? But hold on. But isn't that? Let me just ask you, as someone who's lived in this country a long time, and you've been on both sides of the political divide,
sure have,
over your life. There aren't a lot of white supremacists. At least I'm almost 50. I've never met a single one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, where are all these? I'm serious. Do you run into a lot of white supremacists in the course of your life? Any?
Yeah, no, look, this nation has done a very good job at becoming, we've all become better people as time goes on. That's what Americans do. And that's the real story, Tucker, is that they don't exist.
Yeah, I agree.
And yet the media and many on the left want it to seem such an existential threat that you've got to exact violence against them because it's right there at your doorstep. And this is where the problem is. Now, this Antifa group, the Barack Obama administration declared early in 2016 that they were using domestic violence, domestic terrorism violence, and they warned all states and local authorities that this would be an increasing problem as an organized anarchist effort. It, too, is limited. There's maybe 200 of them showed up in Washington. But the fact is the media is abandoning its job by not only not presenting the real facts of what's occurred here, which is what we've just discussed, but casting it as something large, existentially threatening, and something that should legitimize violence against individual Americans. That is what Americans are rejecting, and it's a shame to see it so out in the open with
That's exactly right.
Fellow journalists.
Nicely put. Tammy, great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Unite the Right and Antifa are both dangerous, disturbing, and disgusting. So what's the difference? While the media categorizes one as bigoted and intolerant, it too often gives the other a pass or ignores it altogether. It's time for Final Thoughts. Over the weekend, a couple dozen members of the hate group Unite the Right, known for their racist, white supremacist, and neo-Nazi views, assembled in Washington, D.C. They were vastly outnumbered by what the media called counter-protesters. Among those in that group were some 200 self-described anti-fascists or Antifa, many of them wearing black masks. They not only confronted the white supremacists, but also threw eggs, water bottles, and shot fireworks at police officers. Listen, if you wear a mask, resort to violence, and shoot fireworks at people like Antifa did, you are not a counter-protester, you are a thug. And if the left wants to call out violence and hate and lawless bigotry, they shouldn't forget to include these so-called anti-fascists. Now, let me make this clear. The fact that white supremacists, no matter how small the group, still exists in 2018 is saddening, maddening, and disgusting. But despite what some in the media would have you believe, I've seen almost every prominent conservative, including the president, denounce the ugliness. And millions of hardworking and kind-hearted Trump supporters around this country have nothing to do with these people, what they did, what they stand for, or what they believe. And one more thing. Conservatives and liberals alike have noted that Unite the Right organizer Jason Kessler was once an Obama supporter and active in the left-wing Occupy Wall Street movement. But guess that didn't fit the narrative, huh? So to all of you social justice warriors out there who have gone out of your way to pin the hate on conservatives, on Trump supporters, on Republicans, you should be ashamed of yourselves, particularly when we have made it crystal clear we do not support or associate with hate groups and white supremacists. It's this phony identity politics that lost you the election. The average Trump supporter is a hardworking American who believes in limited government, personal responsibility, a strong military, a strong border, American jobs, and America first, not a Nazi or a white supremacist. The fact that some people can sit behind their keyboards and continue to demonize us as deplorable bigots, racists, and white nationalists might be a funny joke to them. It might make them feel big inside, but it's BS and you all know it. Conservatives and true patriots are disgusted by the white supremacists and have been vocal about it. But where are the Democrats calling out the violent left? We're waiting. Those are my final thoughts from LA. God bless and take care.
That a lot of journalists, they kind of patted themselves on the back and they said, because we held the president's feet to the fire since Charlottesville, the fascists on the right have died out, and now they're only a group of 25 dummies. But it's us, it's we that did it by exposing their hate.
Look, that's so adorable that they think that, racists have ceased to exist because they pointed them out. But, this was never a big movement to begin with. Even at Charlottesville, what did they have? 100 guys with tiki torches? This was never a mainstream or large movement that the media could point to and say, look what Trump has wrought. And it's funny because a lot of people have been pointing out, like, oh, well, now they can show their faces in public. Look, they've been showing their faces in public at these kinds of marches for years. Just because you didn't pay attention to it doesn't mean they didn't exist. Racists will exist. White supremacists will exist. They will march from time to time and tell us about it. We don't have to take them seriously when they number barely any people. And, I think the bigger thing is that the media makes such a big deal about them that it almost encourages people to join them.
You listed, I didn't even see all of these. I saw the video of someone knocking cameras out of the hand, I think Cal Perry of NBC. But you have the list. They threw eggs at the Secret Service. They were arrested for assaulting a man wearing a MAGA hat. They launched fireworks and smoke bombs at police and assaulted Cal Perry of NBC. And that was the video that I saw. Yet, the press, a lot in the press, they call them anti-hate protesters. Before you got here, I played Chris Cuomo saying that not all punches are equal. So he thinks that getting punched by Antifa is not as bad as getting punched by a white supremacist.
Right. I mean, that's just so absurd. And, I'm Jewish. I've written before that even if these Nazis, these white supremacists are marching in the street, no, you do not get to punch them. That's what freedom of speech is all about. It's not freedom, from your work protecting you. Like, let's say you can still get fired for being a white supremacist, but you are supposed to be protected from violence because of your speech. And that's